Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show here with my good friend Terry. I'm Doug Cothe. I am the founder of People Smart Group, also the primary consultant, as well as the founder of the Organizational Health Collective. And thrilled that you're here, thrilled that you joined us for this fun topic. And over to you, Terry.
Hey, I'm Dr. Terry Wager. I have no idea where my name is right now, but that as I was just noticing that. But I am principal consultant of Generator Coaching Consulting that I run with my partner Christine McGinley, and we are both partners in life and in business, which is super fun. And I am a member of the Organizational Health Collective, and here to talk about what do we talk about today?
Well, we were talking about well-intentioned but stupid advice.
I
you like that
remark sometimes.
We've all done it, right? We all give that bad advice at times. But today, if you watch the little intro video there, it is how often people just tell people, "Hey, you should be a leader. Go be a leader. Go be a leader." And particularly the egregious offenses of that often happen at graduations, right? Where the well-intentioned speaker is challenging all of the students to go out and find their place to lead in the world. The problem is, if everyone led, one, we'd have no followers, right? And number two, are you ready to follow a just graduated college student, or they did it at high school graduations too? Are you ready to follow a high school student that just graduated? Do you really think they're ready for what's coming? I mean, it takes a great deal of courage to be a leader. It takes a great deal of selflessness to be a leader. And honestly, those aren't necessarily developmentally the people that are at that point of selflessness yet.
One of the things that I think about is it takes a lot of self-awareness to be a great leader. And unfortunately, and I'm not saying that there can't be a 20-year-old leader or even a 15-year-old leader that has a lot of self-awareness, but then we kind of do that equation of, okay, let's pretend for a second, 16-year-old leader, okay, they've got 16 years of experience and at least 5 of it was in diapers and things. And so their time of experience and ability to handle stressful situations might be a little limited. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't be a good leader for somebody that is maybe 15 or 14 or 13.
Right.
But to, and the age range equivalent, like you got a 22-year-old leader, great, they may be amazing. But do they have that experience? Do they have that self-awareness to be able to step into situations that are those high pressure situations that some leaders need to deal with?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's the point. I mean, are there exceptions to the rule? Yeah. But should every student be running out to go find a leadership position? No, not for any more. Not at all. And yet here we've got all these well-intentioned speakers at all these graduations that are like, go lead the world. And it's like, no, actually, you're going into a situation where everyone you're going to encounter is older than you, predominantly. Right. Unless you're going to some youth organization, you're going to a place, everyone's older than you. So guess what? It's time to actually do what? Be a follower, learn, grow, hear from others. And so I wish the argument there, and you and I had this conversation beforehand, and we'll dive in now, but I wish the encouragement would be, go be a good follower.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important to, and I don't want this to come out wrong, but it will, but to know your place in the world, know your place in the situation, right? And know your place. But the fact of the matter is I decided to become, in the year 1997, like November of 1997, I decided I wanted to become a psychologist. I had dropped out in the 11th grade, and I was out of school from 1987 to 1997.
Mm.
without any kind of education except in the kitchen. And I'm a very good cook. I learned a lot in that. However, I want to become a psychologist. And the funny thing is it didn't even dawn on me that I should go be a leader in psychology when I just made the decision to do that. I had to go to school. First, I had to actually apply and say, this is why I wanted to. And then I had to be accepted. And then I approved of and then accepted. And then I had to be a learner of psychology.
Yes.
And that is really a big piece for me is thinking about this topic is I still don't necessarily consider myself a leader. I consider myself a lifelong learner,
Yeah.
and I share with other people the information that I've learned along the way. And it's been, 1997 to 2007 to 2017 to whatever the heck it is in 2024. And so I've got a good body of knowledge and experience that now I have something to say.
Yep. Absolutely.
However, I had a lot of supervision. I had a
Mm.
lot of professors. I had a lot of teachers. I had a lot of mentors along the way. And I didn't just have them in those school subjects. I had them in spirituality. I had them in recovery. I had them in relationships. And I had them in my psychology experience. And so I spent a lot of time learning from other people. And, Doug, I don't know if you have ever experienced this, but my ego likes to forget about all of those people and pretend that I learned this stuff all on my
Right?
own.
Yeah. 98% of what comes out of my mouth is regurgitated, maybe processed through my brain and said slightly differently, but it's all those other people that did all those amazing inputs into my life. And so really I have no credit other than maybe I worded it slightly differently than everyone else, or there's so much where we don't come up with
Well,
original.
and I
I mean,
think that we do have to give ourselves the attaboy, or I'm trying to think of the right word here, but we have to give
right.
ourselves the credit that we've actually applied it, attempted it, tried it, and
Yep.
found results, and then applied it again. And I mean, for me, I had to apply things like 16 or 17 times before I actually had a result that worked.
Right.
I'm just kidding. It worked the first time, every time. But the
Right. Good luck with that.
okay, so thereabouts between
Totally.
never working and working really quickly, I learned how to learn. And
Yeah.
I learned how to be present in a situation. And I learned how to be more calm, cool, collected, or emotionally balanced when people are yelling at you, or people are having a tantrum, or people are kicking and hitting you or spitting at you. I had some very, very serious situations that I was in my learnings. And I learned how to be in crisis situations for that type of thing, where how do you handle the situation? What happens
Right.
when the unexpected happens? I just had a pop-up on my screen that just happened. You guys didn't even know it. But and like, what happens when that happens? Do we freak out?
Right.
Well, in the
Right.
beginning, yes.
Yep.
And do you,
Yep.
and this is a question to all of those uh, soon to be in the workforce, being suggested that you're going to be a great leader right away. They're like, do you want to actually have that stress of having to
Oof.
pretend to be a leader when you don't know what you're doing?
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think that's part of the misguidedness of that advice is the lack of understanding or the lack of accounting for how costly it is to be a leader. It isn't. You take the bullets. You get to take all the blame. When there's blame to be given, it's yours. When there's praise to be given, well, guess what? You get to share all that. So
Absolutely.
do you want to jump in that right away when you don't really have your grasp on everything, or do you want to go and learn and grow into that situation? The other piece I would say is did I have the humility when I was in my early 20s or even in my late teens to really deal with a situation like that? No, my ego would have run away with the idea that, oh, I'm the big leader here, instead of realizing I needed the time and the experiences and the things in my life to humble me to the point where I'm like, you know what, I don't know everything, guys. And so now I can lead others in a way that says, you know what, I need all of you. And I can lead others with the confidence of my own identity in what I do, that I don't need to say, hey, you know what, I got to be the smartest guy in the room. In fact, I'd like to be the dumbest guy in the room when it comes to all the different subjects I need people there for. I would like to have experts all around me because I want to be able to work together to come to a better conclusion, not a worse conclusion. And if I'm the smartest guy in the room on every subject, then why are they in the room?
Absolutely.
And yet in ego, in a lack of humility, we don't want that, right? And so we've got to grow with experience that sense of humility that says, you know what, it's okay if I'm not the guy who knows everything. In fact,
Right.
it's better.
You know, it's interesting because I was actually having a conversation with Christine today, and it went something to the effect of, uh, and we all do this, so this is not that big a deal. But the idea of, I know what you're going to say. I know how you're going to. I know that, and I don't want the criticism, or I don't want the input. And it's like, okay, I don't know what she's going to say. I don't know where she's coming from, but my ego just played that for me. And so all of a sudden, I'm protecting a vulnerability that I don't need to. And it stops the conversation, it stops the connection. And the reality is there's a fear of being condemned for not being good enough that
Yep.
we all have. And I think that a lot of people have that. And what happens is, because we have that fear of condemnation, we either shrink or we move over into over control
Yep.
without the experience. That's what we're going to do every time.
Yeah. Yep. And if you ramp up that pressure of being in that leadership role, you're gonna jump that way every time, because that's your gut. That's your normal, right? It's that self-protect. And have I had the time to really understand myself that well? There might be a lot of college students that think they know themselves inside and out, but I got news for you. 10, 20, 30 years from now, you're going to know yourself a whole lot better. And you're
Well,
going to
and a
be in a
whole
better.
lot differently.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was saying in my conversation this morning is, what I know, and I say this a lot in my 12-step groups and things like that, is the way I see things today may change drastically tomorrow,
Yep.
because all I have is up to now's information. And so the way I see it today
Yep.
has no impact on the information that I receive today that might change my mind.
Right.
And I reserve the right to be wrong.
I love it. I love it. But again, you got to have the ego and the identity to be able to say that, right? You've got to.
Absolutely.
Well,
I just have a very, very long history of being wrong when I'm making choices for me,
Yep.
that have made me realize, and it might be the hard-headedness kind of idea slamming my head in the concrete,
Yep.
realizing that maybe there's a better way to do it than what I'm telling myself, and being open to the brilliance of others. I actually wrote a book called Quit Taking Your Own Bad Advice: How to Stop Overthinking and Start Following the Brilliance of Others, because I had a long history of watching all kinds of other people follow their own bad advice, as I followed my own bad advice. And when I was a kid, especially the ages we're talking about, that late teen years, early mid 20s, I had a drinking problem. I had a worrying about what everybody thought problem. I had a didn't really like myself problem. And then I'm making decisions.
Yeah.
And if somebody challenged me on, hey, Terry, you really don't like yourself, I would have been, well, what do you know? And I would have defended the fact that I like myself, and that I think I'm great, and that I think that I know a whole lot. And why would you challenge my level of stupidity when I know I'm right? Meanwhile, internally, I'd be sitting there going, oh, shit, they know. Oh, God, they know. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh. And then I got to prove more. And
Yep.
it's the hell of not being okay with where we're at.
Yep. Yep. Well, it's funny. Even as we've been going through this, I've been thinking of the Dunning-Kruger effect of how the people, and for those that aren't familiar with it, the Dunning-Kruger effect basically says that those who have the least amount of knowledge about a subject and are just getting some are the most likely to tell everyone else about it and what to do with it, and basically share the right way to do things. And the longer and the experience is, and the more knowledge the people get, the less likely they are to talk and to share and to jump in as an expert or authority. But when we got just a smidgen of understanding, all of a sudden we're experts. But all of a sudden, as time goes on and we get humbled by the fact that, guess what, I now know what I don't know, all of a sudden we're slow to talk. And it's at that point we actually need some encouragement to talk. But in the beginning, we need the encouragement to be like, no, you're not it. Be quiet. There are people out there that know a lot more than you. So chill, listen, go learn. And that I think that's perfect for the leadership conversation, right? Because there's so many of us that we jump in quick because we just got a little bit of knowledge. And so you come out of college, you come out of some training program, you come out of the latest thing, and now all of a sudden, well, I just got trained in this, so I'm now the expert. So I'm going to go tell everybody. And it's like, well, no, you're not the expert. You might share your experience, but don't go tell everyone as though you're the expert.
It goes back to I don't remember if it was last week we were talking about it, or if it was on another conversation I was having, but the idea of a black belt, and there's different degrees of black belt, and you don't start with a black belt, you become a black belt. And what I've heard from many, and I'm not necessarily a black belt in Taekwondo or anything like that. I've had a lot of experience with Aikido. But the guy who was teaching me said we don't do belts because you're never going to be an expert. And you're always going to be learning. And I was like, well, I don't like you anymore. And then he threw me on the ground. And and then he said, see, okay, you're right. But the funny thing is and I may be wrong about this because I'm not an expert in this either, but the entrance into black beltedness means now you're ready to be a student. And even if I'm wrong about that, I like that idea of, okay, I've reached a certain level that now I can actually start to learn.
Yeah.
And now I can start to learn how to learn. And that's one of the biggest things about school I found over the years is I always thought when I was a kid and when I quit school in the 11th grade, because I just couldn't handle it anymore, I was always in this approval kind of thing, thinking that these grades meant what they mean, and I'm good enough or not good enough. And if I did bad on a test, it'd just tear me apart. If I did good on it, then I'm the best in the world. And I'd be bouncing back and forth, very, very emotionally dysregulated around it.
Yep.
But when I went back to school, what I started realizing is school wasn't for anything other than teaching me how to learn something.
Yeah.
And then the assignments and stuff were actually there for me to learn how to work on a deadline and how to actually present and put my information out there and critically think about things. And it wasn't to gain this knowledge that I'm necessarily going to use later. Now, my psychology, I honed in, focused in, and I really became knowledgeable in that. Notice I'm not saying an expert. I don't think I'm an expert. There's always more. There's so much more to learn. But I do have a level of knowledge and I do have a level of experience that helps me to help other people at a very high level. Now, I learned that by learning how to learn, not becoming an expert. And I think that that's, I'd like to think that that's a good way to be in this world, is thinking, there's always more. There's always more to learn. And I don't know what I don't know. I don't know where my blind spots are because I can't see them.
Yeah. And I think your story conveys another piece that's vital to this journey of growing into becoming a leader or becoming not an expert, but someone who has high value in a field, right? And that's failure. You got to go fall on your face enough times, but it's not just falling on your face. It's, will you see failure as an opportunity to learn? Will you see failure as an opportunity to grow? And we need failure in our life in order to be able to grow and change and be shaped into the person who can then take care of other people who are coming behind you failing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I remember, I remember two different situations with supervisors, and they worked in the same place. It was my very first year of my grad program, and
Mhm.
one was my supervisor, the one that was designated my supervisor. Funny enough, they're a little harsh. And then one was somebody that was supervising more clinical hours and very how I would put is a very, very good leader. And I think they
Mm.
were both named Susan, the tale of two Susans. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny because the one leader or supervisor was very, very critical. And she was not to her fault, but she was taking a creative writing course.
Mm.
And so she was really jazzed about it and really excited about having this creative writing skills and abilities and course. And so she corrected my papers as if I was creatively writing instead of writing a report for a psychological evaluation. And then it was terrible because I'm sitting there feeling like I'm being graded again on my writing instead of what the task really was is, am I getting the right information in the right places to move along the evaluation of this person to be able to get them the help they need? And I'm being critiqued on how well my grammar is or something like that, which is important, but um, not in a creative, you didn't really fluff this out enough. You stop it. Um, and I get these papers back with red pen all over, and I'm like, oh my God, makes me want to quit again. Uh,
Mm. Yep.
the other was just, it was so fun and amazingly confrontational at the same time as really helping me to level up. And I remember the very first time I experienced it, I was doing my first interview with people, a client, and I knew there was something really bad in their room that I'm not going to talk about right now, but it was really bad and really kind of gross, and it was really depicting how bad their living situation was.
Mm.
And I had to take this recording of this interview back and have it critiqued in my supervision class at school, and my supervisor on campus or on in the job was a different supervisor. But something clicked in my head that it'd be really cool if I could get in the interview this person to tell me how bad it was and talk about how I was able to really bring that out. And so I just kept going back to this thing, and I got obsessed with trying to get this person to say
Oh.
what the badness in there. And I got done with the report, and I didn't, or the interview, and I didn't realize I was doing that. It was just, an obsessive freaking grab. And I'm like, I'm done, and I'm like, oh, that's, that was that. And my supervisor leans back in her chair and goes, "You really had to know what was on the floor, didn't you?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh shoot!"
Oh.
But
You saw that, did you?
it was that kind of leadership and that kind of simple coaching with a question that was more not taking me too seriously, not taking the situation too seriously, and not taking the you got to do it right too seriously, but really realizing where I was at in my process
Mm.
and realizing that my heart was right, but my method needed help. And I will never forget that because she was so gracious with how she did her intervention with me
Uh,
that when I started doing supervision for people, I never ever got a red pen.
mm.
I never went to this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong kind of thing. And I just went into noticing what might be able to be looked at and noticing and then giving suggestions on how to actually make changes in it.
Yeah.
And that became my leadership style in supervision. And by the
Mm.
way, I got really good at interviewing really quickly under the
Uh,
guidance of that supervisor. And I also very quickly changed who was reading my papers too, because I could not handle
mm.
that. And
Yeah.
so it's really, I know I spoke quite long on this, but I really want to put that out there that there's different leadership styles and there's different learning styles.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can be a good learner under any situation. I took the red paper and I made the changes, and I had a conversation with that person many times about, hey, I understand you really love this. I want to get through this, and I want to be a really good technical writer. And so if you can help me with the technical side, but actually leave the creative writing side, it's not me. I'm not creative in that. I don't want to be creative. I want to report the facts.
Yep.
And it was a good interaction on both sides. And to this day, I would say I have a pretty good relationship with both of them. I don't talk to them very often, but when I do, it's a good interaction. And it's because I was a good student.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I learned how to actually be a student. I learned how to be open. And let me tell you, it ain't easy.
Yeah.
I didn't like feedback in the beginning. Now I want it all of the time.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, and I think your point there is a really helpful one of a pointing people to what does it look like for me to actually begin to grow. So maybe I've got leadership potential. Maybe I've got the ability to have an impact that's a high impact. But how do I get there? How do I get to where that's useful? And it takes things like mentors, people who your supervisors in this case, and being exposed to different ones so that you can feel out, hey, how do they each impact me? How do I survive under this person's guidance and this person's guidance? And so one of the beauties, I think, is as we've been talking about this, and I want to dive into that sense of what does it look like for that person that is young, is coming out, maybe even has great leadership potential and knows it, or maybe they don't know they have any leadership potential. But what is it like for them to grow toward fulfilling whatever that potential is? And I think we've started with that idea of learning to be a good follower. Learn to be the type of follower that you want others to be for you if you were in a leadership position. And so being that learner, being teachable, being someone who doesn't come with all the answers, but actually comes with lots of questions and says, help me. And being open. And now I will say in the business world, there are leaders that you go to them like that, you're going to get squashed like a bug. So use some wisdom, don't be foolish and just put yourself out there to someone who really has no emotional awareness, no care to actually be a mentor to you. But find those people that are mentors, that want to be a mentor, that want to invest in other people, and put yourself out there to say, I need to learn, I need to grow, help me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny you said you could get squashed like a bug. There's a guy out there who's a billionaire and is very, very big in the sales world, very, very big in the real estate world. His name, people don't like him. I absolutely do like him. I don't like many of his followers, but I do like him. A guy named Grant Cardone. And one of the things that he talks about with his people is you can come to me with any problem, but you also have to come with a solution. And it's interesting because some people, if we look at Working Genius, some people come with questions and no solutions. And some people come with all kinds of solutions and don't care about the questions. And so there's going to be a balance. And really, if you know Working Genius, you know what I'm talking a little bit about. But I like his philosophy of don't just come complaining with a problem, but
Right.
come with not, and I don't believe that they need to have a solution, but they need to be open about talking about what else other than the problem. And, but they need to be vulnerable and they need to put themselves out there. And if you get squashed like a bug by a leader who is not open to you bringing stuff up, maybe it's not the right place.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that would be a bad leader and someone who probably is continuing to live out their adolescence all the way into adulthood. They're still playing King of the Hill and they didn't realize that game ended in, junior high. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example. And I think would it be safe for me to say what you want them to do is come with the mentality of solution oriented over complaint oriented or over helplessness. No, I'm not helpless in this situation, but I'm actually showing up and I'm coming for solutions. I'm coming with solutions. I'm coming with how do we overcome this, rather
Yeah.
than, oh, woe is me, I'm a victim.
Yeah,
And
the
so what happens?
alligator.
I don't know what to do with life, and life is beating me up. And yeah, well, guess what? That's true, but it's time to figure out, okay, what's the next step forward, not sit there and just flounder. And so,
Absolutely. There's a proactive nature to anybody, whether they're a leader or a learner or a follower or what. There's a proactive nature, and this is something that I look for in all of the people when I'm doing hiring or I'm doing collaborating with people. They have to have some kind of proactive piece to them. And
yep,
so they might not know the answers, but they're willing to pick up a shovel, or they're willing
yep,
they're willing to pick up the rubble and move the project along. I don't know why I got into construction, but I did. But or if it's in some kind of project, they're willing to put their point of view out there. They're willing to do something that other people maybe don't want to do. They're willing to pitch in no matter what.
yeah,
It
that's
needs to
good.
be
Yep, yeah, and that may fit with, we talk about the idea of humble, hungry, and smart. That fits in your hunger side, but also a bit of humility, right? Because you don't have to be the one doing the high profile best job. You might be the one cleaning toilets, and that's
there.
okay. That's part of showing you're a part of the team, and you're here to do whatever is needed, the dirty work or the glory work. Either one, I'm here for the team's sake, not for my sake. And that's a key piece of being a good follower and of being a good team member that then grows to potentially be a good leader. Because guess what? The role of a leader also is not one that just sits there and everyone, your job is to bring me glory and make me look good. No, I'm here to help you do your best. I want to elevate you, not the other way around. And so if I'm a good leader, my focus has got to be on how do I help others? And so that's another place I think would be really helpful for people who are in that followership process, in that growth process. Work on becoming someone who's actually out to help others around you. Be a good
Absolutely.
team player. And the more your focus is, how do I help others? The better leader you're going to be if and when you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that I learned about servant leadership a long, long time ago. And then Christine, when she was in Starbucks, they really focused on situational leadership. And I think that there's I like the melding of the situational
Mhm.
versus or with the servant leadership and serve in every situation. And what are you bringing to? And I also talk about this, especially developing culture. Is I heard it a while back, and I don't remember who said it, but uh, somebody was saying, being able to fit in the culture is good, but being able to elevate the culture to what everyone wants is better.
Yeah.
And I really like that idea of the elevation of culture. And I think that anybody who wants to be a leader, the first thing that they have to do, as you said, is to be a really great follower. But I also think that they have to be able to understand situational leadership. They have to be able to understand the situation and what needs to be in that situation, how they need to show up in it, and they need
Mhm.
to be understanding servant leadership and be able to be of service within that structure in the situation with what they've learned. And hopefully, I don't like to use that word as a plan, but hopefully they've had enough understanding of being able to ask great questions to be able to bring new thinking or new point of view to a situation rather than just showing up and pretending that they know what's going on or pretending that they have an answer because they learned that leaders are supposed to have answers.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And again, that's one of those places. Leaders having answers is a great place of realizing, guess what? You're only as good as the people around you to come up with those answers. And if you think you're going to know everything and be able to do everything to come up with answers, you're in for a big shocker. You're going to make terrible decisions. And so I think the other piece I was thinking of as you were saying that really I think plays off of that is the leaders need to grow in understanding in situational awareness. You have to understand the context of situations, right? I think of Leadership on the Line is a great book, helping people think through the difference between tactical problem and more of a systemic problem. And so, does this need a tactical fix? Is this, hey, my computer broke, I just need a new computer? Okay, fine. But guess what? There's a big hubbub going on in my team between 2 or 3 different people, and everyone's taking sides, and something's going on. Guess what? That's not just okay, shut up and get back to work. I've solved it. Good, we're good to go. No, there's obviously underlying stuff going on here in the nature of my team and the makeup of my team. I got to deal with that. And I got to figure out what it
Absolutely.
is.
And what they really just need is a new process.
Mhm.
So they don't have to deal with the underlying issues. It just let's throw a new process on there. Maybe we'll communicate through Slack from now on, so we don't have to be face to face. But and that was a joke. Doug
Yeah.
got it. I don't know if anybody else did, but the idea, you know, a lot of people tend to throw more systems or processes in place. Or hey, let's make a policy for that. So next time somebody has a fight, they're fired. Like that's a good way to get rid of everybody instead of really understanding what the fight's about. Is it a fight or is it passion conflict? And is it actually people trying to get to the bottom of what's necessary to understand so they can make a good decision? And I think that too often we allow fear to lead rather than faith to lead. And what we're doing is we're going out of that pressured inferiority that everybody has but doesn't want to admit. And if we can really learn how to identify our emotions, really learn how to be honest about where we're at and be good followers and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling out of my depth. I don't know what I'm doing here. I need guidance here. I want to be a good leader. So can you show me how to do that? And turn yourself into mentorship, turn yourself over to a coach, turn yourself over to somebody who's going to actually show you how to become the leader that you want to be.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And yeah, I love that because you need those people to speak into your life, and you need to be willing to listen to them. The other piece I would say is you need to become more well-rounded, right? It's easy to so many people. I love the movie. I'll just go with Patch Adams. I love that movie, and I love the picture that Robin Williams' character plays because he basically says, hey, you know what? I'm not just going to sit in this class and get all the technical information about how to be a doctor. I want to go out and meet people. I want to be around people. I want to understand people because guess what? That's who I'm serving. That's who I'm working with. How do I help them if I don't know them?
Yeah.
And the same is true in business. I mean, there's so many people who we want to become data experts. We want to become experts at how do I interpret data? What do I do with that? Or how do I do the technical skills of a job? And I want to become an expert at that. And guess what? That's not going to lead you to leadership because who you're leading are all people. And so if you don't invest yourself on the side of people, on the side of getting in the mess, one of the biggest things I see with so many leaders is they're scared to death of the chaos and messiness of actually getting into the people stuff. And so they want to stick to, well, tell me about the data. Tell me about the technical side.
100%.
Yeah. And
That's so
if
true.
you want to lead well, you got to know people. You got to be willing to get in the mess, and you got to be willing to deal with the chaos and understand the people you're working with to get the best out of them.
That's
so growing that.
so good. That is so good. The other thing I'll add on to that is a lot of times when we go back to data and we go back to learning the skill better and better and better, it's really because we have a little bit of inferiority going on, and we have a little bit of a fear of incompetence. And so we try to really hone our skill because we don't feel comfortable in the situation, because we're not actually having a relationship. We're having a little mini contest to see if we're good enough. And then as a result, what we're doing is we're trying to prove ourselves through our vast knowledge that nobody really cares about and probably isn't fitting in the situation.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So I'm thinking through and wanting to just think through a recap for those that are wanting to grow and you're wanting to become, you're at the point you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, I'm not ready to be a leader, but I want to grow. And some of the things we talked about the need for humility, right? And the need to get out there and embrace failure, trying things, failing, getting back up, trying again. We need to grow experientially in our humility, not just in a head space of, hey, I think I need to be humble. Um, and we need to build a mentality of growth and learning from everything, not just, hey, you know what, when I succeed, oh, what did I learn? No, when I failed, what did I learn? Hey, when someone else failed, what did I learn? Hey, when someone else succeeded, what did I learn? I'm not going to sit here and be jealous of them. Instead, I need to learn from them.
Absolutely.
And then it's exposing yourself widely to other leaders so you can see what's great about a great leader and you can see what's bad about a bad leader. And so being around there, mentorship, that next level, finding the person that has those characteristics and you go, hey, I want to learn from that person or that person. And it doesn't have to be one mentor. I hope you've heard that too. It's like, we're not sitting here saying, hey, you should have one mentor for the rest of your life. You should have many mentors in different spheres, in different places, and be able to grow from them. We said, hey, you know what? You got to learn people. You can't just learn technical stuff. You got to learn to deal with people and to enter in and to know who they are and to be able to engage them. You need to learn to know the difference. You got to learn the complexities of life, that there's technical problems and there's systemic problems. And how do I deal with both? And so that's a growth area. Did I miss any, Terry? What else
Oh,
did I
yeah,
miss
yeah,
there?
no, I think that that's really good. One of the last things that I'll say is, well, there's two things. One, um, just in the last 3 years, I've had about 5 coaches that I've been working with in different areas. One marketing and building my business, one speaking and putting my book together and that type of thing, and then one that was actually working under my marketing coach that was actually giving me day-to-day exercises and things like that. Um, and a few others. One was an IP coach that helped me really put my model together and put my model forward. And then I had a networking coach that was teaching me how to actually use my network to the
Mm,
best of my ability.
yeah,
And so I really believe firmly that having good coaches, having good consultants, having good people that are mentors are so essential because we don't know what we don't know. And
yeah,
pretending that we do is really just taking advice from a fool. Um, and I don't mean to put anybody down, but we cannot really guide ourselves on the way. I don't know if anybody's ever been lost, but it's very hard for, if you're lost, to be able to give yourself directions.
yeah.
Um, I can't do it. I've tried and I just get more lost.
Mhm.
Uh, and even just calling somebody in, I have a problem with my computer sometimes, and I'll call Christine in, and then just by admitting that I'm not sure what I'm doing or whatever's going on, she comes in and I solve the problem right there. And so
Yeah.
just asking for help is that first step. It's the most essential. The other thing that you talked about, this is the second point that I wanted to make, is um, you were talking about going through situations as debriefs or something like that. And in the medical community, they call them postmortems. When they lose a patient, they do a postmortem and they look at what they did right, what they did not right, and then what they can do next time. And I really like to think about any kind of situation as that we're going to do a postmortem on this situation, and or a debrief. Another way to, I think in military they talk about debriefs, mission debriefs, but really look at what we did right, what we didn't do so well, what we can change or alter to do better the next time. And I think when we engage in more of that, we do a whole lot better. But we have to be able to admit what we're not doing so great, and people have
Yeah.
a real hard time with that.
Good word. Yep. We're in desperate need of that honest evaluation at the end. And to the degree we do that, we grow. To the degree we don't learn from things because we're just fooling ourselves and just pushing on and thinking, oh, well, I came up with the idea. I did the idea. It must have gone well. On to the next idea. Well, did it go well? If you don't ask the question, you're never going to know. And you're not going
Absolutely.
to know what you should repeat and what you shouldn't. And so, what a great word there. Appreciate that. For those of you that are out there and you're sitting there coming out of college, coming out of high school, we're not down on you guys. We're excited for what you have to
Absolutely.
offer. But what we don't want is you to get a bunch of smoke blown up and you get into this whole idea of, hey, you know what? I'm ready to go take on the world and lead the world. No, we want you to succeed. And to succeed means don't jump into something you're not ready for. It means grow to that point and seek to grow to that point. And so we're for you. We're not here to poo-poo anything, but we're here to encourage you toward, hey, take the right steps to become a great leader. And a great leader is someone who takes responsibility. It's not something that's just a reward of, hey, I show up and I'm here to lead. Bow down to me, people.
Yeah,
It's
and
who people follow, whether you have the position or not.
And I think enjoy the journey of learning, because it's not about accumulating enough information so that you can be on top. It's about being able to discover yourself through that information. One of the things that I really try to help people understand in more of a relational aspect, in intimate relationships or social relationships, is we're not having those relationships necessarily to get something from the other person, but the relationships I'm in, I'm learning about myself through the eyes of the other people. And I think that's really important for people in that are joining the workforce or joining a relationship or joining whatever they're joining, to go from a place of learning about themselves through this and being very, very open to how other people see them, and being open to sticking to your beliefs, sticking to your values, but also sticking to the ability to learn, grow, and change. And so there's got to be flexibility, while at the same time as a rigid belief system of what is really important to me. And it takes a lot of experience and a lot of experiences to be able to understand that.
Wow. Well, we're glad we could share this today, and there's lots more we could talk about. We won't go on too long today, but we'll keep bringing those things on this show, and we would love to have you join us week after week. We're here 1:30 Mondays. Come on back, join us. We'd love to have you on live with us at any point that you want to jump in, make comments, those sorts of things. So if you're watching this recorded, come check out the live and come share your thoughts, share your comments. For those that are watching the recording, hey, share your comments on whatever platform you're watching it on. We'd love to interact with you over this. And then lastly, if there's a way we can help you with an organization, you're a budding leader in an organization and you would really love someone to help you along the way, reach out to us. We'd love to help. So Gary agrees. And so thanks, guys, for joining us. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.